Ice program, yes.
So 7 days, almost like a national team. We get kids, 75 kids from all over, rising, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. So between those summers, training camp, college tours, recruiting education, we play in the Trilogy 24 tournament, and then they go back to their club teams and finish out the season. So we have had...
One of my favorite things we do.
It's by far my favorite thing.
Oh, by far.
I think so. Future Aces Tri-State, the last couple of years has been a lot of fun with, big crew of kids, but seeing those kids, and now it's really cool. We kind of follow along and track their careers. And
if I'm a player right now, part of a different program,
probably should come to ice.
Mitch's words, not mine.
Come to ice.
Mitch's words, not mine. So I said one of.
But we were talking about ice and looking at these commitments, and really kind of the heyday of 21, 22, 23, those teams are now just getting into college, either in college as freshmen or committed and going next year. But really just some studs in those classes, and for good and bad, both of us looking back on years that should have, looking back now, we're like, man, how did we not win with these teams, win the championship? And I think Strebel's the only ice team to win a championship so far.
Yeah, I think so.
And that was in the early days, so we're still looking to take that jump. But in terms of success of the players that have come through the program, couldn't be more proud. And obviously, ice is just one part of their journey, but so cool to see so many of these guys stay in touch. They build these relationships with each other. They build these relationships with us, and we hear from them. So it's pretty cool. So we're gonna look back at two teams primarily, but then we'll dive into some others. Should we start with my near miss or your near miss?
Let's start with yours.
All right. So we'll take the time machine back to summer of 2022, and some of these guys did double up and were on your team the previous year.
Right.
So summer 2022, I was coaching a group of 2024 graduates. So these guys just graduated last year. So
they've now matriculated.
Correct.
As they say.
All of these players are now freshmen entering their first college spring, ideally. Some of them reclass, but for the most part. But kind of just going down the list here, we've got Limestone, we've got Baldwin-Wallace, U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, Muhlenberg, Air Force, Conn College, Oberlin, Alabama, Huntsville, Air Force again, Brown, Bowdoin. That is a murderer's row of Division 1, 2, and 3 lacrosse. And that was a heck of a team, and some of the guys that are not playing. We got a guy at Cornell. We've got a guy at Cal Berkeley. Some stud brains in that group as well.
Yeah, and I think seeing that list, what's so important for us, right, is just making sure they go to the right fit. It's not so much of the headlines, schools. It's making sure this is going to be the best fit for you, such that you can be successful in college and kind of thereafter. So it's finding the right fit. So no big surprise to see a lot of diversity in terms of the divisions, as you said, but then also geographically, right? And given the fact that these players are coming from kind of all over the place, some of them want to stay closer to home. Some want to leave the nest and kind of get farther away. So cool to see that level of diversity in terms of not only divisions, but also from a geo standpoint.
Yeah, and the Bowdoin player, representing the NESCAC is Alec Delgado, who played box goalie for us for his entire career. He came to ice 3 times, was injured one of them, so participated in ice 3 times, or 2 times, and came 3 times. But we got to see him over vacation. He came and hung out with the Sixers and was telling tales of his days of the Sixers. So he'll be competing for a starting role. I think he's behind a record-setting goalie at Bowdoin right now, but if not competing for time, then be kind of the heir apparent to the next year, which is exciting for him. And then the other guy that we talked about, Ryan Schmitz, Muhlenberg, and I remember him going through the process and really trying to figure out, is it Division 1, is it Division 3, what's the right fit? And when he found Muhlenberg, he just said, this is it for me. And, I think part of it is just how much he invested into understanding what was the right fit for him, where he wanted to be, where it was, all those things.
One of the most coachable players I think I've ever come across, whether it be field or box, just does everything well, and really kind of anything to help the team. So he's the guy that in box, it was can play short man, can play power play, can play offense, can play defense, can play transition, and then out of the field, same thing. Kind of do it all midfielder, can play on the wings. You trust him on man down. You trust him on man up. He's a guy that you kind of always wanted the ball to be in his stick from a decision-making standpoint. And then defensively, you always trusted him to do the right thing, whether that be on ball, playing physical, tough defense, or within the slide and rotation package. He always kind of knew where to be at the right place, the right time. Clearing, like right. And he's a guy that just did everything well. And I think what was so fun from a coaching perspective is did whatever you asked him to do, and smile on his face, positive attitude, grinder, really hard worker, like all timer in my book.
And I think just got better every year. That was the other. And I think a couple coaches I talked to, I was like, this kid's only going to continue to get better and better. So I'm excited to see how he does at Muhlenberg and
under Jake Plunkett's great coach. So expect him to have kind of a really flourish at the collegiate level.
Yeah, I mentioned 2 Air Force players. So Bentley Miller, big athletic midfielder from Tennessee. He was a ton of fun. He would stick goals on the run, and he was able to use his size and his muscle, but still both-handed, get that shot on the run with his right and his left. And he was just such a dynamic midfielder. And to see him continue to improve, especially being down, he comes from a military family, and so to follow in those footsteps and go to Air Force is really cool. And then he'll reunite with his teammate Cal Schiffer, who was a Denver guy, and was just a man among boys at the time. He was just always bigger, faster, stronger. And then it seemed like as high schoolers caught up, he just kept growing, and it's just a monster. And saw a post on Air Force talking about their freshmen, so they're really excited to have him on campus. But awesome to see his continued success. He was such a focused, driven, kind of a calm leader on that team. Like when I heard that he was going to Air Force, I was like, that makes sense. He's the right fit, and I think Air Force is going to be really excited to have him.
You want to continue with the military theme, or you want to stick with your squad?
We got U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, which is not necessarily one of the service academies, but there's a military angle to it. And Landon Locke was a phenomenal player. Played for both of us, right?
Yep.
And he was a crossover guy, and just kind of similar to Ryan, where it's like did a little bit of everything, and was just solid A at every single role, 92 out of 100 Madden scoring across the board. And Landon was like a grinder, hard, would hit guys hard, would get hit, and would
also very steady, right? Just from even keel, kind of never too high, never too low, always just kind of had the right temperament that I think you need teammates like that to kind of rub off on you, everything's fine. Like
Universal Soldier-esque. Just went out and got it done.
Yeah, just we're fine.
And big smile on his face, same thing, always smiling. And he, similar to another guy who is going to be, he reclassed, so he's going to be another 2-timer that played for you, then played for me, is Adam Solanke. And Adam Solanke will be going to Army. I remember playing against him when we scrimmaged. So we scrimmaged the teams. And I remember playing against him being like, that kid is the kind of defenseman I want on my team. Just tough. He took the hardest chop to the wrist I've ever seen. I was like, oh my God. And it was no big deal. But then the next play, whoever got him, he got back so good and so clean. I was like, that's the kind of toughness and meanness that you need on defense. But off the field, nicest kid you've ever met. And it wasn't like he was cheap. Just he waited for his moment, he picked it, and he got payback in a legal way. And I was like, that's the kind of defenseman I want on my team.
Well, that speaks to his IQ, right? And that's kind of the emotional IQ. I think also when you watch him, his ability in transition to sense opportunities going from defense to offense, and then really heady in the sub game in terms of whether that be a pick to trap an offensive midfielder or kind of cat and mouse. He did that a number of times. For me, just the toughness, you kind of spoke about that. I think I just remember his IQ being kind of off the charts.
Yeah, kind of like a Ratliff. He played a little bit like Ratliff, like the offensive-minded defender, but still tough and physical on defense.
And to see him, go to a place like Army, West Point, obviously we have a strong connection to that program. Our president, Jimmy Flahakis, played there. My father is a graduate back in a much longer time ago.
KG, Kyle Georgalis, former teammate of mine. And
Joe Alberici, head coach, obviously there, have was recruited by him once upon a time, but then played for him on one of the Team USA's. So he's a true leader amongst men. You know, if you want to take a break from this, you know, his speech on toughness at a camp that went kind of viral. Like I think like that just speaks to who he is as an individual, who he is as a leader, who he is as a man, and he's just somebody that like, you know, you want your kid to be around, right? You want like, oh, who's my son gonna be around for 4 years? It's him. It's Coach A. He's just like, he's that type of person, and the rest of the coaching staff is obviously also incredible people. But you know, for Adam to go to a place like Army, obviously there's kind of the military piece and the service piece, but just specifically with the lacrosse program, it's just an incredible program that we're huge fans of.
Yeah, that's the right fit for him, and I think he's gonna not just succeed but thrive there. Well, we had a couple crossovers, so let's go over to that roster. So we'll go back again another year, 2021. Again, the 2024 graduating class, which is this kind of might have been our really strong class, maybe the strongest class we've had across the board for the 2024 year. But we're looking at Endicott, Fairfield, UMBC, Mercer, Loyola, Army, Maryland, Dickinson, Bowdoin. That is a nice mix there. And then Finn McHugh at Cal Berkeley, we talked about. He was another 2-timer, but
a 3-timer.
That's right. Finn was a 3-time guy.
Yeah,
he was injured the following year with his thigh.
Right.
He was a little bit limited, but yes. Any standouts there?
I mean, it was really loaded across the board. You think offensively, you know, Aiden Davis is at UMBC now, was just like lights out in terms of overall athleticism.
The double Aiden attack you had there.
Yeah, it basically like every game started like face-off win and either a goal immediately or like get into an opener play and make sure AD got the ball, and then it was a goal shortly thereafter, or if for some reason then it was like Bodie's going from behind the cage and he's scoring. It was just a lights out group, you know, offensively. But then also on the back end, you know, you look at, we already talked about Adam Selenke, but then Trevor Owens, amongst all those players, and you obviously love to focus on the offensive firepower, but might have been the best player on the team just in terms of the combination of sheer athleticism, size, speed, his stick work, his ability to go from defense to offense. You know, staying in his home state of Maryland, gonna be a Terp, but he is somebody that, you know, was just like all over the field. You know, you just kind of like, oh, there's a loose ball. Why was there a loose ball? Oh, because he caused a turnover. Oh, why is it getting picked up? Because he picked up a loose ball. How do we now transition? Oh, because he ran by 3 guys. He was just kind of like somebody that was just kind of everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, we looked at his bio. His dad played football at Florida State. His mom played basketball at Greensboro. It's like, yeah, he comes from some athletic genes there, but was, you know, another guy that just like really dialed in and focused and kind of led that defense for you guys.
Yeah.
You talked about winning faceoffs. Aiden Kammerer, just dominant. He's a Westtown guy, and he's now at Loyola, right? Did a little bit of everything. He could face off. He could stay and play. He could score.
Truly a do-it-all.
Yeah. And then Bodie Canada, who you mentioned was your leader at attack there. He's now a Fairfield, Massachusetts guy. Cool to see his continued development. He was a guy that like studied the game and was really cerebral with his study there.
Yeah, very slippery, kind of undersized, but very slippery. Always sensed opportunity. Wasn't a robot, is what I loved about him. Is like, as you're setting things up, if the defense just had a breakdown, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna like go off course here, just take advantage of whatever the defense is presented. If they fall asleep at the wheel, if they're not totally organized and prepped yet, like he was just somebody that would like at any moment could just kind of go off script, and that was somebody that like you love those players that can get the team organized, can get everybody in the right spot, can run the settled offense. But then it's like, I'm also not a robot, so like if you just like happen to do something stupid, like I'm gonna take advantage of it.
Yeah, unique goalie situation that year.
Oh yeah,
we talked about this. We had 3 goalies, and yet only one was ready by the time the tournament rolled around. We had a concussion, so Javon
Day
Robinson,
1, I think it was like day 1, maybe first team session.
I think it was definitely one of the first couple sessions.
Yeah.
Maybe the first live shots.
Yeah.
And it was like off the post into the back of the head or something. Really freak accident. But Javon Robinson, who is a Harlem Lacrosse player and has I mean, his trajectory since the concussion, just nothing. Maybe it was like one of those like struck by lightning gold moments, but he has done nothing but improve, and he's going to be playing at Cleveland State, which is another amazing progression for him to see him continue to get better and better and kind of lead that Harlem program to city championships and now going to play Division I lacrosse. But he did come back and play healthy at Ice, which was good to have him back the following year. And then we had Alec Delgado in his first year, and he had broken his wrist, so he was ineligible. I think 2 weeks before he broke his wrist.
Yeah.
So it was all down to Garrett Madera.
Yes, right. That's right.
Garrett Madera was the one, the only, and he did a nice job of stepping up, knowing that he didn't have much backup opportunity.
And it was like, dear God, like cover him in foam, cover him up in any sort of wrapping, like those little bubbles that you put, just like we gotta keep this guy safe. We had 3, now we're down to 1. Like, how did that even happen?
And ironically enough, the following year he had to withdraw because he had poison ivy so bad from helping his dad move a tree. So yeah, the goaltender position at Ice is very dangerous. Be careful if you're an Ice goalie. No, we've been issue free since 21-22 at the goaltender position.
You want to bop around a little bit?
Yeah. Let's talk. What else we got here?
We got Grant Bradburn.
Yeah, most recent commit, and still a college guy. He played for both of us as well.
Heading to Lehigh, G Money. Along the similar kind of to Bodie, kind of on the undersize and like that traditional quarterback, but very much a slasher, right? Very much,
so quick,
super quick, super slick. Can create his own shot, can generate for others, can assess and analyze a defense after a slide has occurred to then survey and kind of pick you apart. So just a highly skilled, highly talented, high IQ type of offensive player. That's going to become a Mountain Hawk, which is made the tournament last year, almost upset Hopkins. So that program, which continues to be competitive, is getting a good one.
Yeah, he was definitely the emotional leader of our offense and scored some really big goals. And like you said, can distribute, he can shoot, and he just brings a lot to the table that they're going to like over at Lehigh.
As we're bopping around, a couple recent Ivy Leaguers, sadly. Neither to our alma mater, but we will not disparage that. We will still give them their flowers, right? A couple brownies.
Yeah.
A couple brownies. In terms of Alex Fontecchio, as well as Angus Miller. Angus played for me. I think what's so cool about Angus is really kind of zooming out is just like the lacrosse world, right? And just the relationships. So, Angus went to Groton, a program that's been to our spring break training for year after year after year, right? And then kind of hails from Jackson Hole, where Dave Madeira really kind of introduced us to Angus. It was like, I got a good, I got you.
Dave Madeira, where'd he go, Ryan?
Yeah, right.
Any favoritism there? Dave Madeira, also a brown bear, so maybe getting in his ear a little bit. His ear.
But Dave, whom used to work at Trilogy and we adore beyond belief, like he was like, hey, this is he's always had a guy or two. He's like, hey, this would be a good fit for Ice. And I remember Angus just like tough, athletic, tall, physical, tough, and also like a guy that like you hated going against. And you like defensively, it's like the guys that are sometimes all over the place. You're like, oh man, like you get to advantage. Like then there's the guys that are like, oh wait, you just never make a mistake, right? And Angus was one of those defenders. It was just like, oh, you're just always solid. You're always clean. You're always in the right spot, and you just like don't make mistakes. And so so he's moving on to Brown. Fontecchio, I think is more of a defenseman that's kind of all over the place.
Oh yeah, he was a guy that I think he played a lot of positions growing up and was kind of all over the field, and then got to play in defense, and then he went up to Deerfield and played at Deerfield and just thrived, and he played with, against, and behind some amazing players, and just continued. Another guy that you just like, you see the athleticism, and then he harnessed it, and he had the environment to shape it, and he just got better and better and better, and always brought the energy, always brought the excitement, and he just needed a little bit of polish, and man, did they polish him up at Deerfield, and he emerged as one of their best defenders, and now I'll be playing at Brown and trying to take that Ivy crown from Cornell and Princeton.
Do we have to cheer for?
I think 5 games a year we can.
Okay, got it.
Each of us.
Okay, so we train for them, just not,
Okay. Brown gets five cheers from us per year.
Okay.
We have had a few national champions that have come through the program.
Yep.
Jimmy Spillane was a RIT national champion, multi-year national champion at RIT, and coached there as well. And most recently, we had our Bronx lacrosse national champion.
Proud partner.
At Tufts. Features Bryce Hall Knight, who was both a Bronx lacrosse player and then came to Trilogy Ice, and he got to explore like what does it feel like to be on a Division III, like high level Division III campus. And we were at Haverford, and he loved it and continued on to Tufts. And big shout out to what Dan Leventhal's doing with the Bronx program, and he's a tough jumbo, so obviously had another connection there that helped kind of like, I think, introduce just all the opportunity that can be out there for different kids. I think that's a big part of the ICE program. It's not just about D1. It's not just about D3, top D3. It's like, hey, there's a wide variety of options based on what you want to do with your life, based on what you want to do for school. And then lacrosse fits in there somehow. So that's certainly something we promote, and it's cool to see these players that have not just found their way, but found their way and then had a lot of success in the lacrosse field as well.
No, you beat me to the punch. I think the work that Dan Leventhal is doing with the Bronx lacrosse crew and those players, you just see year over year them continuing to get better, continuing to have better skills, right? A better understanding of the game, higher IQ in terms of where to be, and like they're just like sponges in terms of being able to pick up on concepts and strategies and things like that. So, kudos to him in terms of the work that he's doing within that community and with his organization, because they've been a pleasure to coach and also just fun to see from the evolution from kind of year to year standpoint.
And that partnership with Bronx Lacrosse, and then we've also got our partnership with Harlem, has been so cool because we usually have 2 to 3 players from Bronx and Harlem incorporated onto the ICE teams, and like you said, it's such a melting pot of different cultures, flavors, people from all over the country that come to the ICE program. So it's so much fun, not just for those programs, but programs from down south, programs from out west, and for all these kids to come together. That's probably one of my favorite parts that is you can't really experience until you're there, is how much these kids stick together after the kind of bond they build, and then how it just lasts them all the way on. And now it's going to be cool to see like Bentley Miller and Cal Schiffer reuniting in college. We talked about that. It's so cool. Yeah,
it's hard to quantify, but you've quantified it as your favorite program. So
we're getting pretty close to full on those ICE teams, but excited to have this conversation in 4 or 5 more years and see who the next crop is from this year's ICE team and where they end up. But a couple more spots, and hopefully we'll get the right fits in over the next couple weeks.